I was born and raised in Greeley. I had my career path all planned out when I was in about middle school. My father was the 7-Up distributor here. And I spent my formative years down at the bottling plant, working hard for no pay, you know how that goes. But I began to decide that, hey, at some point, I could take over my dad's business. And when I was in high school, my dad sold the bottling plant. I remember being devastated at like age 17 that my entire career path was shot. But I had a couple of friends that were cops. One worked for Weld County Sheriff, one worked for Greeley Police. So I went into law enforcement right at age 21. Fantastic career, wouldn't change it for the world. And then I did that for 25 years and was made sergeant, went through most every area of the department. And the school district here in Greeley-Weld, Greeley-Evans came calling and wanted to hire me as the chief of security. Patty convinced me that, hey, you can have a whole nother career. And so I drug my feet to the point where the superintendent of schools told me, you got about 24 hours to make a decision. So I did. And I retired from the police department, went to work for the school district. That was just as rewarding to me as the police department was. And I just retired this past July 1st after 21 years with the school district. And then, of course, the political path came separate from that.
My dad moved here with his family long time ago. He wasn't born here, but he probably was, I don't know, 6 years old when they moved here. And then my mom moved here at 19 to attend UNC. She grew up in Rocky Ford on a farm. My grandfather was a farmer down in Rocky Ford. So yeah, so she moved here, so she's here 68 years. My parents were involved in the community. My dad was a salesman, so he was out everywhere. And my mom, from an early age, she was pretty politically involved. You know, we walked parades and handed stuff out, and she was on the GURA board when it was brand new, you know, years ago. So she probably laid the first groundwork for me to see being involved in something outside of the home. I don't know at the time that I was aware of the importance it would have later, but yeah, I think the involvement and my sense of needing to be doing something outside of my world started early. And my dad grew up extremely poor and in real tough situation, which really drove him. And his heart was always for kids. He was the beginning of my sense of, you know, wanting to try to find a way to help outside of our world.
Both my parents modeled philanthropy and modeled, you know, how a person should act in the community. And my father got involved as a 7-Up distributor with the Chamber of Commerce, and he was on a bank board. And so I saw that when I was young, not really realizing the benefits for our community. And then my mother was a housewife, and what that modeled for me was that she had the cleanest, neatest house and the finest yard, both my parents in Greeley. And so my parents modeled a lot of things for me. Philanthropy was one of them, but it was also that they gave me a good upbringing, and I turned out okay.
And he's forgetting to say that his father was also on city council. So there's a generational thing here, which is pretty unique, I think. And so the civic involvement from that level started, I think, with his dad.
When I told my father back in '09 that I was going to run for city council, he looked at me and said, "What the hell's wrong with you?" And that's a quote. And I said, "Dad, did you forget that you did that?" And he said, "Oh yeah." He said, "You know, it's pretty thankless, but I'm glad there's people willing to do it." But that was his initial response. Part of me wanted to follow in my dad's footsteps 20 years later. And we're the first ever that's done that. and I hope some others do, but I'm proud of that designation, that I did something my dad did. I wish my parents are no longer with us, but I wish my parents could know that I'm entering year 16, my final year, but I think they'd be proud of me.
Being positioned through my career in banking, and as I said, I had some great mentors that, Kay Kosmicki back in the day brought me onto the planning commission when I was very young, and she really groomed me through that whole process. And kids, anything that involves kids really touches my heart. And but that has gone from Red Cross and being on the board of the Red Cross and working at the Littler Center, and every Christmas going out and taking names of the Head Start kids, and buying presents and just being able to see the faces, and that's the kind of stuff that and I've said it before, John and I have never been in a position to make huge financial contributions, but we do feel like it's critical to invest our time.
Probably the first significant board was the Greeley Stampede Committee, and I did it for 6 years and became the chair of the overall committee. And then guess what? Patty followed me a few years after I was done, and so that really hit home for me that I could be philanthropic and do things that benefit our community. But I feel good about the legacy that we'll leave in our community for getting involved in things that make Greeley, Colorado, Weld County better.
We've said it probably too many times, but I really mean it. I feel like we're Greeley cheerleaders.
Yeah, we met through a mutual friend that owned a restaurant, and when I was divorced for a while, I realized that I couldn't cook a lick, and so I had this habit of going to Mark's place, and he had the best nachos this side of the Mississippi, and I'd eat nachos, and Mark introduced us there, and we went to school together, but we're a year apart. We hung in different circles. I knew who she was, because she was kind of it in high school. She
that is not true.
She didn't know who I was, but
he said, "Want to go to a Rockies game?" And I pretended to like baseball, and and that was the beginning of that program. We've been married 26 years, and I think we didn't meet till my boys were teenagers. So I was single 14 years. And John had a huge path he walked into with, he had no biological kids, and he had 3 dogs, and I had 2 teenage boys and a cat.
To walk into a 15 and 17-year-old, good boys, but I didn't have kids, and my kids were my dogs, and they didn't talk back to me. They didn't leave. They didn't mess the house up. So
it was an adjustment. And we've covered a lot of ground, and some of it has been not necessarily philanthropic, like the Stampede committees, and we both did 6 years separate times, and it's an amazing experience. But we've also been on some, I think, impactful, and John has been on some truly impactful things with, suicide prevention and the chamber board, lots of different pieces and parts that still impact this community. So. Giving of our time is probably where I feel like we've been able to bring the most value, and we're not done. I don't think we could do what we've done if we weren't doing it together. If we weren't doing this, and they may be separate boards or the same organization at different times, and that's happened to us in quite a few little different venues, but as I said before, it's really at the core of who we are, and so I am so proud of him and the work he does and whatever I can do to support him.
It feels great to be on the same team, but I think the concept goes back to having a supportive spouse. It was really important when I did 2 4-year terms on the Greeley City Council, and then I really wasn't going to run for mayor. And I got my arm twisted by the mayor, Mayor Norton, who had mentored me. I was his deputy mayor for 8 years, and my boss at the school district, Dr. Deirdre Pilch, and my wife. And long story short, I decided to run for mayor, and she and I had a conversation about, if I'm elected, do you know what this means to be the First Lady of Greeley? And I'm going to want you by my side at a lot of things. And she didn't say, well, I'll pick and choose. She said, I'll be there for you. And she has for my 8 years as mayor. And if without a supportive spouse, it wouldn't work. So that's been the real plus, that I'm looking for that time away from a lot of the things that we've done for all of our lives, to have more time together and to spend, other places.
I was a loaned exec for United Way years. I can't even tell you how many years ago that was. While the work of United Way has sort of morphed, I think, a little bit, my awareness was always there. I knew Janine from the community and just different things, and support the work and believed in it, so joined the board. Janine actually approached me and asked if I'd be interested in looking at applying for that position, which I was. So long story short, I was hired to come in as what is called now, I guess, the Vice President of Philanthropy. We changed the names as it all moved around. So I was in that position for 2 years, and I think it was really a wonderful education for me, because I will tell you, being a board member doesn't give you the whole picture. So I kind of served my purpose and retired from United Way then after 2 years in that position. The work of United Way is critical, and I think that the new direction that it's going, kind of new-old blend of really recognizing, I think, where is the best way for us to move forward and have the greatest impact and bring the collaboration and everybody to the same table, so we're not duplicating services and we're able to be more efficient in the whole community. And that involves these partnerships that I'm very excited to see.
Well, the things that United Way is involved in speak for themselves, and I've always known that. My involvement with United Way is far less significant than Patty's, and it comes down to, I was on the 211 advisory board for a few years, and you see lots of statistics, and that's where it really hit home to me that there's lots of need in our community. It taught me about food insecurity, housing insecurity, when you look at those numbers with regard to what people are reaching out for. I can't speak highly enough about the collaboration between the city and United Way, and there's some other entities, but the city and United Way have really taken the lead on attacking homelessness. Could not speak more highly of the collaboration between United Way and the city, and there's others. We're the two largest agencies, but there's lots of others that felt the need to help too, and it's been a great collaborative event, and will continue to be. We're not going to stop on this now.
The future, obviously, I think is bright for Greeley, and I believe United Way, the university, our large employers, Ames Community College, the partnership with School District 6 and Ames and UNC, the investment of a lot of our citizens in Greeley, in downtown Greeley, in the future of Greeley from an economic assistance standpoint. I think Greeley's just on an amazing trajectory, and we all, from the nonprofit sector, the business sector, and the volunteer sector, we all have an important role to play in making sure that we get to that place. And as I said before, United Way has some very critical initiatives, and I think by them bringing other folks to the table where there is this collaborative investment and focusing on the greatest strengths with the biggest bang for everybody's buck and the biggest bang for everybody's time is one of the most important things United Way is going to be doing. So that's kind of where I hope to die here, and I hope, God willing, we have a few more years to watch all this happen.
When we near the time to pass the torch or the the primary amount of stuff that we do in the community. For our community to be successful, whether it's City of Greeley United Way or the school district or UNC or Ames, there has to be a new batch of cheerleaders. We want others to take the ball and run with it, and I have full confidence that they will. And we'll continue to have the best community there is. And we started this some time ago by saying we love Greeley and we'll die here, and that's very accurate. And there's lots of others that feel the same way. And that's what makes our community great.